Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford. On the other screen is Weston Hodkowitz. We're coming to you from different locations here at Lambeau Field, and it is Thursday, which is also schedule release day in the NFL. And while things are being prepped and discussed and talked about in anticipation of the evening NFL Network show on the schedule, we are going to put off talking about the schedule until our next show, because actually, Wes, there was an interesting off-season day at Lambeau Field on Wednesday, the kind of day that doesn't happen all the time. And what I'm talking about, of course, is the first news conference for a new QB1 here in Green Bay. Jordan Love addressed the media in the Lambeau Field Auditorium, along with teammates Kenny Clark and Aaron Jones. And just wanted to ask you for your impressions, your thoughts on Jordan Love at the podium. Not that we haven't seen him there before, because he started a game, he's gotten some playing time and preseason games and all that. We've certainly, had many media sessions with him, but this was the first time, with the official QB1 title.
So it's funny, this week I've been going back over some of the things I've written about Jordan Love over the last 3 years. And I was going through a profile that I did on him after the draft in 2020. And actually, as I found out while doing that, Panini ripped off one of my quotes from that and put it on their trading cards. So I really appreciate that, without attribution, I may add. Not bitter or anything. But that quote that they took was from David Yost, the former offensive coordinator at Utah State. And the quote he gave me back for that story is one that really resonated with me while he was at the podium on Wednesday. And it went like this, Mike. The kid is always going to be even keeled. If you think any better, listening to him, you would think his heart rate is like at about 30. Good, bad, or indifferent. Jordan Love is when you talk about the construct of a quarterback, NFL, college, high school, whatever level you want to talk about, there is a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of quiet calmness around them that I think you need to excel at this level. And Jordan Love has that. Mike, you asked me my perceptions, my thoughts, my takeaways from Jordan Love's presser. For 17 minutes, I thought he showed that he can be the face of this franchise. I thought he showed he can be the one standing up in front of the room and handling all types of questions. Jordan Love was asked 6 different ways from Sunday about handling pressure. And I felt like his comments were very salient in that there's always pressure. It doesn't matter if it's Aaron Rodgers you're succeeding. It doesn't matter if you're a first-round pick. Doesn't matter if you're Brock Purdy. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. The quarterback is always going to have that on his shoulders. Jordan Love is ready for that, Mike. And it was funny, near the end of the presser, Mike Clemens, one of the radio guys, says to him, people ask me about you and they don't really know you yet. And, basically just what's he like? And I think to a certain extent, we do know what Jordan Love is like. He is a guy that is going to come in and he's going to do his job with a personality that I think resonates with that locker room. I'll give you something to talk about here. I won't steal everything, but the comment that Aaron Jones gave us about how, for 3 years, you haven't heard a peep out of this guy.
Right.
I think speaks to the character of both the man and also the type of teammate that Jordan Love has been in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think what struck me the most, quite frankly, is that in some ways, and I'm not saying this as a knock on Jordan Love, but I wasn't struck by anything really in the press conference. And I think that's because, we did see the same guy that we've seen when he's talked to the media at his locker during training camp or after a preseason game, or when he has been at the podium after some of his regular season action. Jordan Love, as you said, he's an even-keeled guy, and that's who he is on and off the field. That really is the guy that the Packers now have commanding the offense. And he didn't walk out there as, for his first session with the media as QB1 and feel like, okay, I have to win the press conference. I have to answer all these questions so that all the stories have, this certain angle, or, he didn't take that approach. He's just like, all right, ask what you want to ask. I'm going to give my honest answers. And and I'm going to move on with my day, because at the end of the day, he knows that it's not about what he says in front of the media.
Yeah.
It's the preparation he puts in. It's the way he acts around his teammates in the locker room. It's about going out on Sundays and winning football games when September rolls around. And that's really all he's focused on. And yes, there is going to be that face of the franchise label now, that he's the starting quarterback. But my favorite line of the whole thing is, to follow up on what you said when he was asked all these different ways about pressure, because, he's following a 4-time MVP. He's only under contract for 2 more years, with that extension. So he has to prove himself, and, for perhaps another contract, and the pressure that comes with that. And he just said, pressure. He's like, that's what I signed up for. That's what you sign up for when you decide to be a quarterback in the game of football and make your way all the way to the NFL. And to play the position, it comes with the territory. It's part of the deal, and he totally understands that. He's not going to be overwhelmed, by that aspect of it, because quite frankly, I don't think he thinks about it. He thinks about those outside forces all that much. He's focused on himself, and he's focused on his teammates.
This kid ultimately, and I should say young man, he's not a kid, he's 24 years old. But, he's going to be judged by what he does on the field. And I think Jordan understands that. He appreciates that. He was talking about how he needs to protect the ball better, the things that he needs to do as a leader, what he's basically expecting of himself in this 2023 season. But one of the big comments I've made to you during this whole journey is, for all the outside consternation over Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers and what was going to happen. Is he going to leave after 20? Is he going to leave after 21? Are they going to do an extension with him? Jordan Love never made that situation more difficult than it had to be. No one ever thought about, well, what does that mean for Jordan Love? Love even said it, and I think it was to your question, after Aaron signed the extension, that was probably the moment where it was probably the hardest for him, because now it's like, okay, well, I've put 3 years in here. What does this mean if Aaron Rodgers is going to be here for another 3 years? I'm clearly not going to be the guy then. But again, that's not anything he raised really in the media. He's not gone around and made it about him. He was a humble servant to what the Green Bay Packers needed him to be during that time. And when his time did come in Philadelphia last November, it was 9 passes, 6 completions. Aaron Jones joked about it. Probably should have been 7. But the kid was just always the same guy. I know you always go to the podium after games, and I go to the locker room, and Jordan stood at his locker in the away locker room. Now, again, a guy that typically just gets dressed and leaves and gets on the bus, grabs his food, he's all good to go. Well, for that day, he had to sit at his locker for probably 20 minutes and answer questions from waves of media. And same guy. So to bring it back full circle, when David Yost gave me that quote, you hear a lot of stuff. You and I will do these profiles on kids, after, they get drafted to Green Bay, and you'll hear all sorts of things. Some of them spot on, some things, maybe a little bit of, building up and don't want to say exaggeration, but, different information. David Yost's comment about that 30 pulse heartbeat, good, bad, or indifferent with Jordan Love, that's what you see, and that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. So I need to clarify something here. So you're saying that a quote that only appeared in your story on Packers.com on Jordan Love showed up on a Jordan Love trading card.
Yep. It's actually happened. It's happened 3 times now, believe it or not.
Wow.
I thought it was cute the first time, but then the next few, it was like, oh, wow. So Panini's just ripping these things off. Okay. That's cool.
Well, I guess they scour team websites looking for looking for things that they think are supposedly free. I suppose, like
at the very least, credit you or something, or credit Packers.com. Give us something, Panini. I mean, just ripping it and put it on the back. Because, like, again, if it would be a quote that I got from a group interview and they whatever, but it's like all that was original content, guys. Like,
yeah.
You're kind of walking
That's
out
what,
of the grocery store with the produce, but
yeah,
okay.
that's what I wanted to clarify. I mean, if it's a comment that was, said in a large press conference setting and, has appeared in lots of different, media articles, media outlets, whatever the case might be, like that feels a little different. But when it's
It
something
was
that's exclusive, to one particular article, that seems strange to
Do you
me.
know where it was solicited, Mike? Where it was recorded? In my bonus room at my house when we were in a
Right.
pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. The post 2020 draft
Good
pandemic when
times.
we were all doing our work from home. So well the other two players we heard from at the podium on Wednesday, as it relates to the Packers offseason program where they are right now, Aaron Jones and Kenny Clark. Obviously Aaron Jones spoke of his support for Jordan Love and really speaking for the entire locker room, and Kenny as well, that that this is a locker room that's behind this guy. They're going to lay it out on the line for him, and what struck me there is that they both spoke of just the respect that they have for Love in terms of the way he went about all this, like what you were talking about before, how he never said anything, even when there was so much uncertainty with Aaron Rodgers signing a contract extension, and Jordan Love doesn't know what that means for his future. He didn't cause a stir. He didn't cause a problem. And that alone earned a certain level of respect in the locker room, because Jordan Love proved that he's a team player. He's here in Green Bay to help the Packers win games in whatever way the Packers want him to help win games. And I think that's going to go a long way in this transition. Obviously, as the Packers are making this youth movement, so to speak, with a lot of veteran players who've been around for a while, not coming back, although the door isn't closed on all of them, but the locker room is definitely skewing younger. And there's a lot of guys in the locker room that didn't play a whole heck of a lot of years with Aaron Rodgers. So it's not as though the transition is going to be something traumatic or overly dramatic for those players, but for veteran guys like Kenny Clark and Aaron Jones, who have been around for a while, they made it very clear that they've got their quarterbacks back.
Mike, the thing that I loved about listening to Aaron Jones and Kenny Clark in that whole situation was, in a way, they are different. But my goodness, Mike, when you think of the path that Jones and Clark both came on, there are parallels to the situation that Love finds himself in. Kenny, it made sense, right? He plays a position where there's usually two or three of the guys on the field at the same time with him from his group. But he had to wait most of his rookie year to finally get some of his bigger opportunities, and then really came on late, then took off towards the second half of his second season.
Right.
Aaron Jones, every single week in 2018 and at the end of the 2017 season, was basically being asked, do you want more touches? Do you need more touches? And he just kept smiling and saying, I will do whatever the team asks of me. You can tell both of those guys appreciated the tact and the approach that Jordan Love took in this situation. And again, when you're talking about this next step of this organization, this next step of this franchise, these are three of the players that I think you want. We talk so much about, who do you want coming off the bus, right? Who's the most intimidating? These are the three guys I think you want representing your franchise. And to add on one more thing with Jordan Love, for people that want to make this Love or Rodgers and Love, the fact that Love talked about how he spoke with Rodgers afterwards, and Rodgers telling him, if you ever need anything, if you ever have a question, you still got my number, still give me a call. Let's talk about it. I think Aaron Rodgers too also appreciated the approach that Love took to this thing, that with his development process, and now finally getting this opportunity in the very much same way, at least on the field, as Aaron Rodgers did in 2008.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well said. I'll take care of some sponsor business here, Wes. Sirius XM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. And at Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50 years of better. All right, one other subject I want to touch on here, Wes, before we go today, and that is as it relates to Kenny Clark speaking to the media yesterday. And I want to dial it back a little bit to when we heard from Brian Gutekunst a couple weeks ago during the NFL draft, and particularly when another first-round pick was invested in the defense in the selection of Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. The Packers are going to have a total of 8 first-round draft picks on the field as far as the starting, or if you consider the 12th and 13th guys, with sub packages, essentially your starting defensive unit, 8 first-round draft picks. And Brian Gutekunst made no bones about the fact that the expectations for this unit are going to be very high. And even setting aside the fact that that is a unit that the Packers are going to be really counting on as they make this transition to Jordan Love at quarterback, and the franchise takes this new road. And, you go back to last year and we had talked about it, where the expectations were very high for the defense and the offense was making this a big transition, not as big as this year, but still a significant transition without Devontae Adams at wide receiver. That was going to be a big shift for the passing game. And there was a lot placed on the defense to, sort of hold up its end, at least in the early going, while the offense could settle into this new reality and get things going. And really starting with the London game, the Packers were out to a 3-1 start. Everything looked like it was all right. But then starting with the London game, things started to go south for the defense, and it really didn't get back to playing the way everybody had hoped and planned until the stretch run when the Packers were trying to steal a playoff spot there at the end. Kenny Clark, is absolutely clear on what the expectations for this defense are. And hearing from him, it sounds like the defense is not going to run and hide from those expectations, even as for a unit that didn't live up to it last year. And he knows they didn't live up to it last year, but they aren't going to run and hide from those expectations again. The sense I got is it's like, yeah, the expectation should be high. Bring it on. We need to come through for this football team.
Yeah. And Mrs. Clark, she raised that kid so well, because it's not just about the football team. You go back at the end of last season, I think it was Jason Wilde who did a story on Kenny, talking about his own year, how he expected more out of himself. It's never good enough, and he's never going to come up with excuses to talk about not meeting expectations. He knows what the expectations are, being one of those 8 first-round picks right now on this roster, including Lucas Van Ness. The weird thing about the 2022 season defensively for Green Bay was, I think they were at their best in terms of the talent on the field early, but it was almost like after the Rashawn Gary injury and also Eric Stokes, they had to reconfigure things. And I felt like they were the better team, the better unit later in the season. They're going to get Gary back. They need Rashawn Gary back. No questions about that. But I think it's about understanding where guys fit in this scheme, and also where they're going to get the most productivity from the corresponding pieces. You can have the 11 best players at their position together on the field, but if it doesn't act cohesively, if it doesn't meet with the scheme, if all the parts do not attach, it's going to be a tough go still. And I felt like in the second half, they did a better job playing together as a unit. The other thing that Green Bay tapped into the second part of the season that I think was important was after Stokes' injury. Rasul Douglas, to my eye, is his position's perimeter corner. I give him credit for trying slot. I know there's a lot of hubbub in the offseason about, hey, could he go to safety? Let Rasul Douglas be a perimeter corner. When he's a perimeter corner, the guy has 8 interceptions in 17 games as a Packer at this point when he's playing outside. He is a good complement to what they're doing with Jair Alexander, especially with not knowing what's going to happen with Eric Stokes. I think you need dog mentality players like Keyshawn Nixon in this scheme. You hope that both Quay Walker gets another year better, and Devondre Campbell being a little healthier this year is going to help. But everybody gets it. Joe Barry, we haven't talked to him yet this offseason, but he gets it. The defense is the area of this team that is fortified right now. It is the area of the team that doesn't have to make, big strides with a young unit. They have experience coming back, and they need to play to that experience level.
Yeah, and I think what was so mysterious, not that we need to rehash everything with last year, but what was so mysterious about what was going on with the defense last year is that we constantly, regularly saw spurts of really, really good defensive play. And what was expected of the team was visible at certain times, but it was never for a full game. It was never for a couple of games. I mean, I think back to, the game against the Jets, the one that was right after the really tough loss in London. The Jets had like 8 consecutive possessions and they scored 3 points. Now the offense wasn't holding up its end in that game, but the defense was doing what you thought you would do with a young quarterback like Zach Wilson coming into Lambeau Field. But then as the game wore on, suddenly things start to change and the defense goes the other way. The game at Washington, the Devondre Campbell gets a pick 6, at halftime, everything's looking pretty good. And then suddenly, when the Packers really need some stops in the second half to be able to win that game, then the snowball was going the wrong way down the hill. And consistency is the hardest thing to achieve in this league. We know that, right? It's not even realistic to ask for consistency. But for this defense, I think when you compare to last year, it's about trying to smooth out the ups and downs. You're going to have some ups and downs, but the valleys can't be quite so deep, and the peaks can't be quite so far above what is, sort of like the normal standard of play. There needs to be a leveling out of how things go so that the coaches, the players themselves, the other side of the ball, the offense can know what they can count on from the defense. And I think that's the biggest task that Joe Barry, his coaching staff, and all of these veteran players and first round picks have on defense is to play a smoother, more reliable brand of football, not something that swings wildly from like, oh, that looks like the greatest defense, ever, to oh my gosh, it looks like they can't stop anybody. And this game is completely going the wrong direction. So something, some sort of a middle ground there, because if you can find that middle ground, the talent is there to play well enough to win games. And that's where this Packers defense needs to get to.
Yeah, Mike, you make so many good points in that, but I think your best one there is with the consistency piece, because what is consistency in this game? The offenses are going to win at times. And if the offenses don't beat you, occasionally the referees will. There are things that are going to go against you in these games, right?
Yep, no question.
But the important piece is, I think this is where ultimately, and probably why it made sense where Green Bay fell last year in a lot of the rankings, was when they were stopping teams, man, they were stopping teams. And then when teams got on runs like Heineke did in the second half against Washington, they were really having a difficult time getting them off the field. That's going to be the thing. Hey, team goes down, has a 12-play drive, 80 yards, 75 yards, gets a touchdown. Cool, whatever, it happens. But the next series, you're looking for 3 and outs. You're looking to stop them at midfield. You're looking to get the ball back bouncing in your direction. That's where I think the Packers defense needs to get to this season.
Yeah, well, it's something that we'll be talking about certainly all through training camp and through the early portion of the season as the offense makes the biggest transition it's had to make in 15 years here with moving on to a new starting quarterback. So with that, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. On our next show, we will talk everything about the 2023 schedule. We'll break it down from all sorts of angles for you. But until then, for Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and we will see you next time.